You're listening to The Daily Show.
The Daily Show?
The Daily Show.
The Daily Show.
On Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
With Russ Kane. You're listening to The Daily Show.
The
Oh
Daily
my
Show?
God!
The Daily
for
Show.
love of God, shut
The
up.
Daily Show.
On Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Thank you. You ever had one of those days? Have you? You ever had one of those days? Hi, everybody. I'm Russ Kane. This is The Daily Show, exclusive to Men's Radio Station. You know him. You love him. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the king of the New Malden area within like a 2-mile radius of the Tolworth Tower. Nobody funnier. Nobody more competent. No one can spin them dicks. I don't even know what the hell that means. Neil Long.
Who do you think you are? Pat Sharp playing all the jingles?
Whoop, whoop. All the hits, all the hits. My favorite of all the ones we used to play was all the hits, all the hits, all the hits, all the hits, all the hits.
No, mine
That
was.
was my favorite.
I just love Pat Sharp. I'm still a fan of his to this day.
Oh, yeah. I
Pat
love
Sharp's
that, man.
got all the hits. That was my favorite. And the Dr. Fox one as well.
Doctor, give us the news, Dr. Fox. I don't know why we're plugging them. They never plug us.
Well,
They never
we
plug
can
us.
reach out. We can reach
Reach
out.
out. I'll be there.
Right. Who's on? Who's commented? Here we go. Who have we got? Double firing.
Yeah, I
Lol.
know. It's just, I know.
You're being
I-
heckled.
Yeah, I know. Afternoon, Neil and all. That we don't know who that could be. Don't know. Could be anybody. Fat Scotty, otherwise known as Scott Lyons. Bonjour, boys, and hello, boys. Yes, I have. What does that mean? Yes, she has.
I have
what?
no idea.
She has what?
I don't know.
Cooties. And Fat Scotty, Dadan, hot rocking 95.8 FM, or something like that. Isn't it interesting how those things stick in your mind? Yeah,
Earworms.
we might get some new jingle. We might get some new jingles. It'd be quite fun. I wonder what the hell Liz means. Hello, boys. Yes, I have. What?
I don't know.
Been
Perhaps
to
she'll
the
tell us.
loo, washed her hands, had a cup of tea.
No, I am excited today because we've got a
All right.
very,
Anyone we know?
very special guest coming on.
Ooh, okay.
She is a lovely lady. In fact, lovely doesn't cover it. Inspirational. We're probably
That's
the
more
closest,
like
but
it. We can say that. We like that. We like inspiration.
Inspirational.
Good.
Let's bring her on and I shall
We can
introduce
in
her.
1 second, but this is breaking
yeah.
news. Breaking news from Houston via Guildford. Hi, y'all. Just after pick up Mum from the Bowls Club for the last time until September. But don't worry, she's lots lined up for me. Holy God. This is Julie Voice's mum, who's, I don't know how old she is, for God's sake. She's doing the Race for Life on Sunday. She's doing 5K. Your mum is, we've got to get your mum on. Get your
Thing is,
mum on the
Julie,
show. That'd be
This
fantastic.
lifestyle that you're leading, we are a station all about health. We'll catch up with you one day. Bowls, giving people
Bowls.
lifts. It really is on the edge of, it's on the edge, girl.
I don't know how she does it. Bowls. When I take Ebony, the mini schnauzer, for her daily walk, I go park. She's 96. She's doing 5K on Sunday.
Lord.
What planet was this woman from? Exclusive to Paramount. The Outsiders. I just make this crap up as I go along. Hey, listen. Hang on, Emma Jane. With you in a sec. We're just riffing, baby. We're just riffing. 96. Anyway, I go past the Bowls Club every day with my dog now, and it looks very genteel. Looks quite nice. Packed every day, heaving. You do the introduction because she's your chum.
Okay. Well, I'd like to introduce this incredible lady for the second time to MRS.
Second time.
She is a corporate trainer. She's a motivational keynote speaker. She's done
It's the third
TED Talk.
time, apparently.
She is
we're getting
personal-
we're getting the third time she's been on.
She is a personal development mentor as well. And most importantly, for our purposes here, she speaks out and really does not do it by halves, as will become very apparent soon. Speaks out and is a voice against child sexual abuse and
Thank
an
God for
absolute passionate advocate against it. So first of all, Emma Jane Taylor, welcome to the show.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Russ. Good afternoon, Neil. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Are
It's
you all right in that
absolutely-
tunnel? Or are you locked in a cellar? Are you okay?
Anytime I go on StreamYard or Teams, the lighting goes so dark. I don't know what it is. I've tried everything I can to try and fix it. Zoom, no problem. StreamYard and Teams, for some
It's like an
reason,
episode from sort of a Netflix film, usually with
I know,
Sandra
I've got-
Bullock. You know, something terrible's happened. Sandra Bullock's stuck.
only.
And
Yeah.
she's got to get out
Well,
of trouble in
unfortunately,
90
nothing
minutes.
so dramatic is happening.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
in
fair
my
enough.
office. I
Okay.
have got 3 lights on me, and it still goes this dark. If I turned a light off, you wouldn't see me.
Well, I can see its shirt, but I can't see. It's a bit better.
That's better.
And then it fades.
Ooh.
How
Much like
bizarre.
So if
life,
there's anyone
Emma
if
Jane,
there's
much
anyone
like life, it starts off great and light, and then it just fades to nothing.
really does.
It
Yeah, a
really
bit like my
does.
career.
That's not true. Your career is
not true.
blossoming, fella, just going in new
smashing it.
directions. You've reinvented yourself, which is the
Emma
sensible
Jane,
thing
welcome
to do.
back. It is so lovely to have you. And I'm going to put your hashtag on the screen straight away.
There we go.
Hashtag not my shame. I love this hashtag. We're a station all about mental health and well-being. We call ourselves Men's Radio Station. We do have a sister women's radio station, but interestingly, 50% of the listeners to this station, the MRS, are women as well. So we cover everyone. And I can see your T-shirt, not my shame, and I'm kind of reading it.
I am not afraid to
it's a
say
pretty.
that's as far as I got.
You
It says,
tell us.
I'm not afraid to say I was
Word.
sexually abused as a child.
Holy
I was a
Christ.
child. It isn't my shame. It's in the face.
Wow.
Right?
Emma Jane, let me ask you the first question before Neil dives in. Do you wear that when you're out?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And the first time I wore it out, I have to say I was extremely nervous because it's
Yeah.
a bold statement. And, you know, this conversation has been under so many rocks for years and years and years, and still is now. And but I got sick of it because I just felt like we were going around in circles. So many people speaking out, so many survivors doing everything they could to make a difference, and then nothing goes anywhere. No one really listens. And you know, the purpose of this is to say, look, it's not your fault. You're a child. It isn't your silence. It isn't your shame. The shame and silence purely falls back to the paedophiles, the perpetrators, or the offenders involved. It's not the child's fault. And we need to turn that around. We really need to turn that around because so many people are drowning because they've been through this horrendous abuse as children. They don't know what to do with it. When you get to your late 20s, your brain really starts developing. You start understanding a little bit more about this conversation and what happened to you as a child, but now you're fearful to talk about it. You're embarrassed to talk about it. Often than not, it's the 90-10 statistic, which of course is my charity. It's that 90% of children abused are abused by people they know. And of course, then there's that trauma bond and they've got emotional attachment to their abusers.
Right. Can you just explain the term trauma bond, please? I've heard it quite a lot and I think I know what it means, but I'd rather hear it from you. Trauma bond, what does that mean?
Yeah, so trauma bonding is really, it's exactly as you've heard of, I can't know, what's the name of that?
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome, yeah. So Stockholm syndrome. So really, it's when you feel very attached to the person who's abused you. So you might have a love for them. If it was your parent, you're in love, and it's that unconditional love. If it's a family friend, there's a love of the friend. If it is a family member, there is that unconditional love. So you have a love for that person, and so they bring you in. Through the grooming procedures, the love procedures, and then then there's the violation that goes on. But by then, you're already emotionally invested in that person anyway, and you've had the grooming and the violation, which is often not done under the stressful situations that many people think that
and
it is.
Cognitive...
And then you're trying to get away from that, and you can't because you've bonded. So then it becomes a trauma bonding, and trying to step away from that is very difficult.
And the cognitive dissonance that must cause as well. On one hand, I love this person, and on the other hand, this. And how on earth people wrestle with that, I don't know. I do remember talking to a friend of mine, and I'm going to use the pronoun they, not because they're binary or anything like that, or but I just really don't want to identify male, female to keep us.
Okay.
And they told me that they had experienced abuse as a child, and they said it was just the most terrible, dirty secret. And when I could finally tell someone that I trusted, that was the words that I quote. And when I could finally tell someone I trusted, I think they got an awful lot more space around it, just be able to say it out loud and be heard and seen and validated. And then she used that for, I could have been virtually channeling you, Emma Jane, without knowing it, because they said it's just an awful lot of shame. And I said, oh yeah, there is a hell of a lot of shame, but not yours. Not yours.
See, Emma Jane, when you think about it, it's almost the perfect crime, because the actual victim, despite their best efforts, somehow through these utter bastards, it makes me so angry, becomes complicit, or they feel they are complicit, whereas they've done absolutely nothing.
Or even made to feel that they were in some way responsible for it. I remember that awful time.
That doesn't help, Neil. I know that, MJ, I know that me getting angry is not constructive. But
Sorry,
I am only human. And when I think about these things, you know, I've got kids myself, and when I think about these things, I would have just gone around with a baseball bat, the end. I mean, I would have, because they're despicable. They're despicable. There is no excuse for this. No excuse.
No excuse. And I think, you know, the emotions that anyone who's gone through this kind of trauma experience will go from utter confusion, well, you go through sort of like devastation, confusion, then the anger comes in, and then that feeling of worthlessness, that embarrassment, that shame, that silence, because you don't want to speak out. Maybe that person is, you know, an upstanding member of the community, and you speaking out really will be diluted because of that message, and so people get silenced. And then obviously with everything that goes on in the media that we've seen over the years and years that we have on these conversations, no one considers the survivor, the victim who's gone through all that trauma. And we really need to.
I watched your talk. I watched the video on your website, and I took some notes from it, which I'm going to put on the screen. And this was a really key point of it: make it about the survivor, not the perpetrator. Because I mean, I remember the you're probably familiar with it, the Larry Nassar case.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I became aware of because you were on Madeline Black's podcast, Unbroken Healing Through Storytelling.
Yes.
And so was the judge that sentenced him, Judge Rosemary Aquilina. So that's how I know about it. And I sort of, looked at it and took a bit of an interest in it. And the survivors there were terrified to speak out because he was so high profile. The kids were going to say, I thought he'd be mad at me. I thought he'd be angry. And hiding behind that and this veneer of respectability, he got away with it for years. Not anymore. He's doing a life sentence now. But
good.
But my God, it's
so many have feared, and we really shouldn't be. I've just noticed there's a Y in my name.
Yes, I'm just trying to change it. I'm trying to change it. Yeah, I'm trying to change it.
So the Larry Nassar case was huge, but so many cases are so big, and yet there are still people, even with facts in front of them, who can see that this guy has been guilty. The children have spoken up. It's been historic abuse. There are still people out there who think these victims are lying, and I just cannot get my head around that.
What? Now, why?
I cannot get my head around that.
Is it because, I'm going to take a guess.
Because they've all been groomed as well, right?
Will they? Well, every judge.
They've all the public have been groomed. No, not the judge, but the people who are thinking that these perpetrators and these vile paedophiles are still innocent because they're nice guys. They've been groomed by them as well. They can't see beyond the fact that
they've charmed them. Do you mean
they've been charmed by people, and they can't get through that. They can't get past that. And we've seen that in so many cases, high-profile cases over the years. But the non-high-profile cases, we still see it all the time. But no one's going to speak out about child sexual abuse and campaign and advocate and activist, all the people that are doing so much to try and help this conversation, write books. Why on earth would you want to live that kind of trauma all the time? You wouldn't. you know what it brings to your life, and now you want to help other people, which is why we're saying not my shame.
I've got two questions to ask. What was the reaction of people the first time you wore that T-shirt in public?
I think
I
someone
asked
nearly
that.
dropped their.
I asked that.
Oh, did
I
you?
think someone.
Yeah, I asked that
someone.
one.
Oh, sorry.
Someone.
I
And,
asked that because when I started to read the T-shirt and I asked Emma Jane, I said, "Well, did you
I mean,
have
well,
you ever worn this outside?"
Okay, well, maybe I didn't hear that. I didn't answer, but well, I think someone nearly dropped their shopping, and another
Yeah.
person just turned their head. But now I wear it without even thinking I've got it on, and many people have spoken to me because I've got it on, or they'll message me privately saying, "Oh, you wore a T-shirt today. It really resonated with me," and then they start chatting about it. Obviously, the campaign has picked up with people over the last sort of few months. Lots of people have joined the campaign here in the UK, in America, in Canada, Dubai, obviously Europe, Australia. We're just about to hit New Zealand and Pakistan this week, and a lot of people in Pakistan are very keen to have this conversation because, as we know out there, there's lots of deeper problems with children being a lot younger than they should be in the UK being abused.
Yeah,
Sorry, legally.
I mean, it's a worldwide problem, isn't it? So the conversation really, really needs to be had, and you really are at the forefront of putting it out there because you don't do anything by halves, do you?
There's a lot of comments. There's a lot of comments coming in. I'm not putting them on screen. They're completely inappropriate and completely out of sync with the conversation. So when you wear, I've got to come back to you wearing your T-shirt out in public. If it's somebody who's messaging you, it's somebody who knows you, has tracked you down. If you're in the queue at Tesco's, Aldi, Lidl, and the person next to you looks at it, what is their reaction? Because they can't move away. They're standing next to you in a queue. What
I
do
think
they?
the majority of people.
I think the
majority of people will do with this T-shirt what they do with a conversation, which is turn a blind eye, push it under a rug, and move on. It's the odd person comes through who's an ally, who says, "Actually, EJ, I just read your story, and actually I want to make a stand because I'm a parent and I want to step up and put a T-shirt on because I understand it's an important message." You know, the wider conversation and the lateral conversation is this isn't about just today. This is about the next generation, the generations to come, to be able to protect them, because this conversation is so it is so prominent around the world.
Because I think it is that thing that we've got in our psyche, particularly in the UK, just to sweep it under the carpet and pretend if we stick our heads in the sand, it's going to go away. If we can't see it, you know, like the child playing peekaboo, if we can't see it, it doesn't exist. And that must be number one, incredibly frustrating to you and terribly traumatic. I'm thinking aloud here for the people who are experiencing it, possibly as we speak, who feel that they won't be seen, validated, heard, and understood, and that does need to change. And education needs to change as well, because you don't talk to people about.
Is this from Scott Lyons? Emma Jane, a sensible comment. Finally, do you think that aside of the denial by other adults, there's a cultural generational denial towards children reporting abuse in the UK and abroad? Big question.
I guess what he means is believing the children, right?
I don't know. I'm not psychic.
Yeah, that's how I would interpret it, and it kind of dovetails with the question.
I think again, yes, there is, because you know, if you're reporting about some, and as we know, the statistics for child sexual abuse tends to be 90% of children being abused are being abused by people they know. I've lost count of the amount of conversations where a child or a young adult has reported it about their friend at the family, or their grandfather, their father, their uncle, their auntie, their mother, and how could that be? They're such a nice person. You must have been dreaming. It must have been an error. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe you didn't really understand what was happening. But sorry. No child, right? You know,
I got to stop
no
you.
child.
I got to stop you. Hang on a minute, please. What is there to misunderstand? There's no grey area here. They've stepped over a line that is completely inappropriate.
It's denial, isn't it? It's just an absolute denial. I think that it dovetails to what I was going to ask, because Scotty said it really well. It's almost like a cultural shame. You know, if you like, what shames one shames everyone, and none of us want to think about it because it's too uncomfortable. So we just sort of pretend it's not happening. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's something we just don't want to acknowledge.
Yeah, Scotty just said, yes, believing children or believing, but not wanting to believe them and not wanting to help them report. But yes, I think there's a huge problem in that, because families don't want to have to report their sibling, their uncle, their auntie, their father, because that's then admitting that their family is dysfunctional. But instead of like listening to the child, you're protecting the abuser, and then that tends to go through the generations, and then that child becomes a young person, becomes an adult, and they're like, hold on, that wasn't right. You protected the wrong people all the way through my childhood. I'm completely screwed up, and and going through all sorts of dysfunctional behavior because of what happened to me as a child. How can anyone see that that wasn't a thing and that didn't happen? And so there's the bigger question: is why are people? When a child has been sexually abused, there will be a flag. There will be, without a shadow of a doubt, flag that's raised that says, oh, hold on a minute. For me, I was genuinely a really nice child, really good, very well behaved, and suddenly I wasn't. And I was the terror. I was the drinker. I was the smoker. I was the one being excluded. I was the one in isolation. That didn't just happen because I was okay. That's happened. That was how I was dealing with it. And so when you have a child who comes forward and says, this happened to me, I didn't even actually know what happened to me. And that's not uncommon either, because as we are developing as young adults, we don't really know what's right or wrong, and then you've been groomed and you've had trauma bonding, and it's very confusing time. So I was dealing it through very dysfunctional behavior, but that's enough then to go, hang on a minute, regardless of what this child has gone through, something's different. Let's have a look at that. Let's talk to that child. Let's see what's going on. Maybe it isn't child sexual abuse. Maybe there's another form of bullying, manipulation going on. And that's what people need to get behind. Otherwise, these children are being left to try and deal with something that is really something they can't deal with. And then they go into adult lives, and they are held back because of it, and then all the dysfunctional and
Held back
behavior
at best. I mean, at best held back, I would say, and at worst, if they're acting out still in adulthood, they could end up possibly in trouble with the police and then end up getting punished for something that was never theirs in the first place.
Most people thought I'd be dead or in prison by the time I was 20. And I remember a CID, and he was called Trevor. And one night he said to me, Emma Jane, go home, go home. There was a bit of trouble. And later on, I bumped into him about 5 years ago or 4 years ago. And he said, I said, oh, I remember you. You're Trevor. I said, you won't remember me. He said, I never forget you. And I now know your story, and I'm not surprised. I'm glad you're okay and doing what you're doing.
Can I ask you this? I want to broaden the conversation just for a second, then we'll dial down. What happens when it's on what I call an industrial scale? In other words, Rotherham, where the police did nothing. Why was that allowed to happen? You must have been sitting there biting the walls with anger. I, thank God, I've had none of this experience in my life or with anybody I know. And I'm blessed in that regard. But when I was reading that and how they got away with it, and there seemed to be no problem whatsoever with grooming hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of girls, how did you feel about that?
It's sickening, isn't it? I mean, it's just sickening. I mean,
why were the police so pathetic?
Do you know, I think there's a lot in what goes on with the authorities behind the scenes in the governments that really, as we know, needs to change. It needs to be acted quicker. There needs to be less paperwork. There needs to be less procedures. If you've got knowledge that this stuff is going on, then instead of going through paperwork and procedures and monitoring and watching, go in and deal with it. Go in and deal with it sooner. Make a complaint, raise the alarm, do whatever you can to protect those children. And if you're not protecting those children or raising the alarms or doing everything that I would do if it was me, then there has to be questions asked, isn't there? Maggie Oliver stepped in and got involved in some of the exploitation cases, raised the alarm, was the whistleblower. and she was working for the police. Now she did that because she couldn't stand by to watch anymore. So she blew that whistle, and things
But
started
they
to
were
move and
happy
get
to
changed.
they were happy to stand by and let it happen because they might
Yeah.
offend somebody. That's the bottom line with that. So really, this is just expanding what you've already touched on. The families, let's just try and break it up a little bit here. The families don't flex on them, and they think, "Ooh, I can't let our kid point at Uncle Harry because
because that
that
will bring
means
shame
which
on
is
the
pathetic.
family.
It's Uncle Harry who's the freak, and it's Uncle Harry who needs to be in jail for a very, very long time, not the family. And when you expand that, we can't do that because it looks like we're criticizing a section of society. Let's put it in neutral terms, but you guys are smart. You know what I'm talking about.
And that's what protected.
And that never have happened.
That's what protected NASA for so long because he was. People thought he was a very highly esteemed doctor. People would seek him out and send their young people to him, and the girls were scared to complain because they thought he might get annoyed. That they're thinking as a child he might get mad at me. Now, you wanted to put this message out. I'll just read this first.
Yeah,
I coached kids football, says Scotty, for 13 years and had one disclosure. The FA safeguarding training is so matter of fact, but doesn't give us practical training and skills to deal with it. Felt helpless.
Awful.
Well, look, one thing I've been trying to do is garner support from sporting events, from football clubs, from tennis, the big tennis events, the big, all the big activities out there. Of course, it's radio silence. No one really wants to acknowledge this. But there needs to be better safeguarding. All the clubs, all the activities that go on there for children. The DBS is not cutting any ice, right? You have a DBS done today, you go and abuse tomorrow. No one's going to find that out until either the police get involved or someone pushes that forward, and then it becomes a situation where the authorities get involved, and then it gets flagged on your DBS. But the DBS is rubbish in my opinion. There needs to be a lot changed, and obviously we also know about the Della law. Sex changes. Name changes. So if someone was to offend today as, I don't want to say a name because there'll be someone watching, and then tomorrow
don't.
they go and change their name to something else, they can. So, for example, Sean Hobbs, actually, the guy who raped that girl in Scotland, and he got community service for it because he was under 25. I'm like, that guy should be in prison for the rest of his life.
I'm sorry. Don't just breeze past that. The guy
community service for rape.
Got community service.
Yes. So I was
for rape.
I
Meanwhile,
spoke about
Alex Bellfield's banged up for 5.5 years.
Yeah,
I mean, what doesn't matter. It just like, how can that be a balance? What is this about? This is nonsense.
He raped a 13-year-old girl.
Oh Jesus! Well, I mean,
and he got away with it, and people were blaming her, saying she was encouraging him. And I'm like, hold on a minute, he raped her. He's now ruined her life. And because of the Scottish laws, he had 270 hours of community service. Well, look, most community service that offenders are given would be things that I would enjoy, like nature, gardening, activities that are outside. That's no punishment. This guy should be in prison for the rest of his life. Get him off the streets, right? He's a danger to children and women, and
I mean, the guy's
get him away. But he's now living his life in Scotland doing community service. But my point to this is he's changed his name allegedly. So he's gone.
Don't say what the new name is, please. I really don't want to get into that legal wrangle.
No.
So you wanted to. I think we're all fairly agreed. It angers all of us. I mean, I remember that awful phase in the 80s where, if a girl was assaulted, they would get the phrase, and I hate the phrase. I don't like it. I didn't invent it. The phrase slut shaming. Oh, it must be their fault. They wore a short skirt, which is ridiculous with an adult, let alone a person under the age of 16, for God's sake, or 18 or whatever. It's just, I didn't agree with it then, and it angered me then, and it still angers me now. But let's talk about what you're doing about it, because you wanted to get the message out there big, and you don't do anything by halves, do you, Emma Jane? Not, it's fair to say you don't do things by halves. So you wanted to get the message out there big, so you were doing things like climbing mountains and stuff. Go on, tell us about it.
So I did a year of challenges to raise awareness of child sexual abuse. So I did the Jurassic Coast, I think it was 90 miles. I stood on top of a plane. I did a wing walk. I did the English Channel during lockdown in a pool. And I did that across a month. And I've just sort of done lots of different things that have challenged me. And in doing so, have used them as a platform to get the message out and talk to people. So whether I've been in here in the Isle of Wight, I walked around the Isle of Wight, whether I've been top of the plane, I did a video on the top of a plane when I was wing walking. It's all to get the message out, and I will do anything I can to get the message out, because there are survivors struggling today. There are children being sexually abused right now while we're having this interview. So we need to get the conversation bigger. We need to get it out there. We need to remind survivors that it's not their shame. Help them turn that conversation around, turn the tables, put the silence back where it belongs, and it's not with the survivor. People to speak out. Now, it doesn't need to be speaking out on a platform like this or in any of the media or any of the other events I do. Simply speaking out to a friend, to a counsellor, to someone who can hear you, who can help you release that inner pain, that darkness that's inside of you. That's literally all that it could do to help. And now I've been that child who didn't want to talk, and I did find my voice at 23, and I didn't speak out till 45. I had no desire at 23 to be here as a campaigner. It just became that for me, and now I'm here. I'm like, okay, until the day I die, I'll do everything I can to make a difference on this conversation.
Emma Jane, what was I fully, absolutely 100% endorse and agree with all of that. I think that's fantastic. That's brilliant advocacy.
Of course.
On a more personal level, if I may, what things did you find the most useful in your healing process? Because obviously you've done a lot of healing over the years.
Good question.
So stop drinking, to stop taking drugs, were key, because they're suppressing so much for me. They were suppressing so much for me, and I was becoming in such a dark place. I didn't know how to deal with it. Finding a therapist. I thought it would be a 12-week therapy, so that's why I booked in 12 weeks. Forget that. That wasn't what was going to happen for me. It was a lifetime. And I'm not saying that I don't want to think people think, oh God, I got a lifetime. Okay. I've been thoroughly enjoying everything that I did over those years, exploring conversations, realizing that, I wasn't the person to blame for what had happened to me.
And what a relief that must have been. What a relief to recognize your intrinsic goodness, your intrinsic innocence in all of this.
Yes. So I did talking therapy, hypnotherapy, psychotherapy. I did EDMR. I did picture therapy, tapping. I did sound therapy. I did acupuncture, reflexology. Every time I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm getting it out. I'm feeling better. And every time I felt better, I got a little bit stronger. And then I got, and never to be a campaigner, by the way. I just wanted to feel better about myself, to live my best life in my world as a professional woman in my industries. And that's literally all I ever started to recover for, to have my best life. And then obviously I had the opportunity 5 years ago when I thought, right, I just want to make a difference, and here I am. But for me, it was, it was that sort of that growth I got. I went into clairvoyancy in the latter years, something I poo-pooed for years, and people still poo-poo now, but whatever fits, let it work for you. And
the reason is there's a hell of a lot of charlatans out there who talk garbage, and there's some very
and
good
some genuine ones too, and
there's some fantastic ones, and a lot of people who should just shut up.
Absolutely, but then you could say that about any industry, right? There's a lot of people out there.
No, you can't. No, you can't say that about accountants or solicitors or architects. You can say it about, I'm getting a message. Have you lost somebody with the name of P? No, I lost Uncle David. I meant D. Yeah, I meant D.
Well, I found it really helpful. And I think I found it helpful because at the time when I embraced it, I did a lot of research to work with the person that I spoke with. And regardless of whatever that person was, it released me again. I wasn't there to speak to the dead. I was there to speak where I was now into my future, and I found it really helpful.
No, I'm not
And
poo-pooing it at all. Listen to
yeah,
this
It's
from
it's
Francoise
whatever
Pascal.
works.
Hang
It's
on, Neil.
basically
Hang on. Neil, hang on.
yeah.
Francoise Pascal, I wish I'd have known you in my 20s when all
Oh,
these things were happening to me. By the way, this is a techno problem. It's not Neil and I talking over each other. There is a very slight
lag.
nanosecond lag, and that's why it sounds the way it is. Nothing I can do about it. It's tech. I had no guidance nor help, says Francois, from anyone, and I sorted it out myself. Mentally, I was a mess. And you know, when you were speaking earlier, Emma Jane, this is what was going through my head. I'm going to leave that up because it's important. And I started to think, here you are with the courage, the strength, and the determination to pull yourself out of this wreckage and build a life and not just repair yourself, but then spread the word and try to help others. But for every Emma Jane, here's my point, Neil. For every Emma Jane, there are hundreds of thousands around the world who can't be as strong as you, who don't have that mental attitude.
You've hit on a really important point, because we talk a lot on this show about putting your own oxygen mask on first, self-love and all that sort of thing. And you said you did it for yourself to live your best life and feel better. And I would agree with that completely. Some people might try and take the leap straight away to helping other people. I saw that a lot in the NLP community. There was an awful lot of very wounded people there that were trying to sort of almost vicariously heal themselves by healing other people. But it always has to start with you. And no, that's not selfish. That's self-care, and absolutely necessary.
Not selfish at all.
Do you know one thing that I kind of think of when I have this conversation is, for years I used to think, isn't that weird that they tell you if there's an emergency on a plane to put your oxygen mask on first? Well, ordinarily I'd have been, I want to help everybody else.
Indeed.
And then I got a bit older and I was like, because unless you survive, you can't help other people.
Exactly.
Correct.
And that analogy really stuck with me, and I use it quite a lot, even in my own life today. Remember, if you're struggling for air, you're not going to be able to help anybody, and you're no good if you're not here. So put your oxygen mask on, help yourself first. I started using my oxygen mask when I was 23. Never in a billion years did I think I'd be sat here talking to you guys today about not my shame. I just wanted to feel better, and that's what those years of therapy and recovery and healing did.
Brilliant.
Like the lady was just saying, I did a lot of that through my own work as well, and listening to people, the professionals, to gain as much strength as I could. It takes time. One of my disclaimers is, a lot of people will see someone speaking out publicly or on a stage and doing all these wonderful things that we do. It didn't happen by chance. There was a lot of years to get here. There was a lot of years of mental training, emotional training, physical training to be here. I don't advise anyone to come on the radio show with you guys to talk about their journey unless they've had an amount of healing behind them, because this could potentially shut them down, right? It could trigger them. There could be a troll.
Exactly.
I
don't imagine you would be making the strides and incredible achievements that you're making today had you not started with yourself. If you'd have said, I just want to help other people,
no,
like those well-intended but
because
misguided people in the NLP community, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just,
terrible foundation. Could you answer this?
I've seen people's lives car crashed because they spoke too soon on forums and platforms that really could not, were just too big for them, and they hadn't healed. So I advise anyone in that process just to look at.
Are you saying you've seen them crash when they were actually addressing an audience?
No, afterwards they might,
okay,
but they might. They might have put something on social media and then they've had a troll. Whereas I just would back them off now. Years ago, I'd have been upset by them, but now
we need to go around again. I think the baseball bat is the answer to so many difficult questions. I really do. A fact, Scotty, and I don't care. There you go. I just don't care anymore. Emma James, let me ask you this. If there was one change, the great question from Scott Lyons in Wolverhampton, if there was one change you could make to the law immediately to further this cause, what would it be and why? Excellent question, Scott.
A really good question there, Scott. And I have many answers, but to
Okay,
give you one
off you go.
answer, it would be that the law is changed immediately to stop child sex rapists, offenders, paedophiles, whatever you want to call them, from changing their name.
How do you feel? I'm going to broaden this conversation a little because it's a bugbear for me, and you're the right person to ask for all the wrong reasons, as you will understand what I mean by that. I wish you weren't the right person to ask because that means you wouldn't have had to suffer the way that you did. You see my point, what I'm trying to say.
We know where you're coming from.
I hope you see what I'm saying in a rather clumsy way.
I think so.
There is an argument, and a lot of people feel this, and it's not just tin hat conspiracy, that the normalization, this is very edgy stuff. So if you're offended, I don't mean you, Emma Jane, I mean, if our audience all over the world watching and listening, if you're offended, okay, this is heavy duty stuff. If you read the subtext of a lot of the media, you read it carefully, you can see that there appears to be in certain areas the normalization of pedophilia. Changing the wording so that suddenly you're not a pedophile. It's not your fault. You're just attracted to little children. I'm sorry. What is that? You're not a bank robber. It's not your fault. You're just attracted to money that doesn't belong to you. You're not a murderer. You just happen to walk in somewhere with a gun. This is madness.
Well, I did see, I think it's on Netflix, and there is a group of people, and I didn't coin any of these terms, and they do have these feelings of attraction to children, but they do not do anything about it. In fact, they hate it. They want help. They don't want to do it. They don't want to commit crime. They go, I've got something seriously wrong and I want help. Yeah. And people like that, of course, I think should receive help, in my opinion.
Well, they should. Yes, they should. Now, for example, Emma Jane, it wasn't that recent, but a few months ago, there was a whole thing from Balenciaga, which, if you don't know what Balenciaga is, it's a high-end fashion house. And
I shop there all the time.
Their adverts were stomach churning. So they managed to make it. I just want to finish my point, if I may. They managed to politicize it, of course, as everything is. And what they did was this, and this is really where I'd like you to respond, by saying, "Oh no, you know, people who don't like this are kind of right-wing Nazis and they love Trump." And I'm going, "Wait a minute, stop conflating millions of issues which have got nothing to do with this. You're sexualizing children. Stop it. It's inexcusable."
It's unethical, it's inexcusable, it's inappropriate. Children need to be children. Children are underdeveloped with their brains until late teens, early 20s, some say late 20s. Now, they have a very short window of life. We've all had that short window, right? Where children can explore being children and get away with so much. You start early sexualizing those children and putting them into outfits and into campaigns that is over sexualizing them. Their brains can't cope. And so their brains start overthinking, become much more grown up very quickly throughout those years, and because of no fault of their own, they also land themselves into other dangerous situations because of the over sexualizing it. I know a lot of young people who've been exploited as young children who've gone on to prostitution because they cannot keep up with their sexual desires that were taught to them as young children. And of course, then you've got the other side of that. You know, you start over sexualizing children too soon, you're potentially growing pedophiles anyway, right? By giving young people, boys and girls, this experience of this over-sexualizing.
The point I wanted to make about this, and I think it's important, it's not a political statement. It's not you're left wing or you're right wing. Some things are just disgusting. Some things are just wrong, universally wrong. Vote for who you like, follow what political leader you like. Makes no difference. Some things are wrong. This is wrong.
100%. 100%. And if we use the Balenciaga campaign, as you mentioned there,
Yeah.
wholly inappropriate. Children being involved in things that they shouldn't be. Where was their agent? Where was their parent? Who was behind the camera? Who was involved in the marketing? Who was involved in the production of that? And who signed that off?
But you see, yet again, we get into the fog of war, as they say, because everyone said, "Oh, we don't know." Well, I don't know. We didn't sign. Well, somebody signed it off. I was in advertising for 40 years. Of course, it gets signed off at a senior level. You idiots, stop it.
I'm
not stupid people.
I'm the director of a performing arts school, and over the years, in the last 25 years in that industry, we have worked with high-end media outlets. We've worked with film, TV, radio, Broadway. That some talented kids have gone on. As their representative, who I work with agents, I know exactly what those children are doing, where they are, and how what their involvement is. And if anything came into my email inbox that had the description of the Balenciaga thing, I've been like, forget it. That's just totally wholly inappropriate. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I haven't seen
there's
it.
a lot of people who. A lot of people might think as parents, oh, we just want to get them into Balenciaga without looking at the bigger picture.
I always say when I hear stuff like that, I always say the following: you used to have to get a dog license before you could have a dog.
Absolutely.
Jesus Christ. Just because
I think you make such a good point about over sexualizing too early. I mean, I'm just going back to my childhood experience. I mean, I started, I suppose, wondering about sex when I was about 12 or 13, but it developed, and actually sex ed was terrible back then. I think most adults could do with some sex ed, but that's another conversation. But yeah, you're right. But I hadn't thought about it that way before, Emma Jane, of too much too soon would lead to an over desire in the future, and because they can't cope with these burgeoning desires or don't understand them. It should be a natural organic growth, surely.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the things
that goes to
shocking,
victims and perpetrators, right?
One of the things which always turns my stomach, and I don't understand how people think, oh, it's cute. Thank God it never really took root here, but it was huge in America and probably still is, of getting little kids, I'm talking about 3, 4, 5, into beauty pageants. Holy
oh my goodness.
God.
Oh my goodness.
It's stomach churning.
I have an issue with this.
It's stomach
I have a
churning. Yes, I have a huge
issue
with this.
And actually I spoke out about it on Twitter a few months ago because there is a beauty pageant in the UK. And they've made it quite a covert competition. But I have a grave issue with that. We need, in this day and age, in the 21st century, when we've got everything that we have around us from social media, online activity, sexualizing children in ads, the beauty pageants need to go, because the whole water is muddy around this. And if you are, like I say, if you are over sexualizing children earlier, even to believe that they are, cute and pretty and want to be wanted, you are breeding a type of child that
just think of what you just
become
said,
at risk of becoming a victim.
Emma Jane, just think of the words you just used, of wanting to be wanted. What the hell?
Absolutely.
What does that mean? You're 4 years old. Stop it.
And then that becomes an education, and then that lands straight into the groomer's hands when they go, "Oh, you're really pretty," and etc., etc., etc. And the child goes, "That's what I understand." And that's
that is my worldview. That is my worldview. I'm 4 years old. I'm wearing tons of makeup and lipstick, and I've been sexualized. What are you thinking as a parent?
I mean, I think I would want children to know, and there's a second part to this, so bear with me. Yeah, of course we want our children to know, they're beautiful inside and out. wonderful as people. And if they won the genetic lottery, why not? But not judged on looks alone for a start. And also to be completely educated in what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, and knowing that they're going to be heard, believed and validated, and protected, of course. Nothing wrong with having high self-esteem, but not in the way that you put it, where it's the only thing they know, then they play into a groomer's hands because it's the only thing they know. It needs that balance on the other side of, but this is appropriate and this is not appropriate, and you have a right to say no, and talk of consent and all that. I mean, there was no talk of, when I was doing sex education at school, it was literally a book. With one chapter in it. It was like a general biology book. And then the book fell open at the same page with 30 kids in class all at once, which was pretty funny, that chapter. But it literally was a picture of the biological workings. And that was it. And the teacher said, right, take it home. I know you all want to read it. But when I think about it from a mature perspective, there was nothing in there about consent, about pleasure, about intimacy, about communication, about relationship, nothing.
Of course,
it was just a picture of the biological bits and how they work.
But you know what, Neil, I say this in some defense of this situation, and it's this. And before you throw something heavy at me, Jane, let me finish. It's this. My dad's generation was, you'd say, one for the road, right? And you'd have a drink before you got back in your car. Have one for the road, Neil. Oh, I don't mind if I do. Right? We look at that now. We think, what bloody hell? No, you don't drink and drive. Never mind about let's have one for the road. It takes time for these things to permeate through. And as much as we want instant change, and I agree with our guest, certain changes to the law should happen this afternoon. But to change a whole way of thinking it through a generation, through millions of people, it takes time. Which is why the really unhelpful things like child beauty pageants, like Balenciaga, like the sexualization of children, that should stop, because those are easy things to stop.
And that's why we need,
to stop.
Full circle, pioneers like yourself, Emma Jane Taylor. What other exciting things have you got coming up? Because I know you've got some exciting things on the way, haven't you? Well, you always have.
Yes, I always have.
Well, what are you doing next? Climbing a rope ladder to the moon at night or something?
Jack Bruce.
So I have, there's lots of things I want to do. There's lots of things I've been considering. Obviously, I am campaigning for Not My Shame. I'm also doing a lot of work for Project 9010, which is my new charity. We got, we were given, we went over the line this year. So we're now official with charity commissions, and we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to get to the point where we can educate, protect, raise awareness of child sexual abuse. Everything that we're doing now and everything that I'm doing is doing because I want to get out there, I want to campaign. Now I'm doing a lot more to fundraise, to get the campaigns out there, to get them bigger. We can't do it without fundraising and without any money. So that's where we're sort of at the moment with the charity, doing what we can to raise awareness. The Not My Shame campaign, which was simply something that I thought I'd just start. I put it onto Twitter, it went viral. It's gone all over the world. And as I said earlier, it's now sort of being seen everywhere. So I'm focused on doing what I can to get that out there. I want to get some sporting events using the hashtag. That could take me for the rest of my life to try and do that.
Could I jump in at that point? Emma Jane, can I jump in at the point? We are on a big push at men's radio and women's radio, part of the Sound Mind Radio group now. One of the things we want to look at hugely, and it will take time, we can't do everything, is to look at how mental health within the whole arena of sport. If you would like to come on and at any point work with us, because Scott Lyons up in Wolverhampton raised a great point, how he felt so helpless when a kid came to him through his football training and said he was being abused. We need to try and help with that.
And if there's anything,
if we can pull...
I'd be absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you know my history is also I'm a professional in the wellbeing space in the sports arena as well. So I'm addicted to fitness. I changed my addiction from drugs and alcohol to fitness.
I was about to say it's an interesting choice of words. Yes.
yeah, and so I changed that across because I realized the importance. So I do a lot in the education for young people through the performing arts and also with my fitness, but I'm also tying in my charity work, my Not My Shame, my campaigns and everything to protect, because I'm aware that obviously I need to protect the children, but I've also got a lot of adults in my well-being industry, in my business, who have been affected by child sexual abuse, and they do come through. Some are in their 90s coming through to talk to me. So my passions are fitness, well-being, performing arts, campaigning. I'd do anything to help this conversation.
Wing
You know, I
walking.
would.
And
All right.
conversely,
Okay. Well, we'll talk
anything we at MRS can do to support you.
Uh,
You've got
this
my
is great
contact
having me
details.
here.
You've got my hotline, as it were. Well, my WhatsApp.
Let's
So
end with this
seriously, just
question.
flick me a text anytime, and we're very, very happily support you in anything at all. I want to ask you.
Except if you ask me
can
to
we
wing
finish
walk.
with that question? Because that's just a really
Yes.
great way to finish.
That's
Actually, yes,
exactly
you should
what I
both come and do a wing walk with me.
Yeah, I'd rather.
All right,
I'd
then.
rather
I'll
bang
do
it
that.
up.
Let's see if we
Are
can
you
get.
out of
Let's
your
get Men's
freaking
Radio
mind?
Station to fund us to do it, and
Let
then
me
we'll
just
get you
tell you
up there to
something,
raise
Emma Jane.
awareness.
Emma, I'll say it in
rather walk
public.
down
I'll do
street-
a wing walk with you.
I won't.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's crowdfund.
High five. High five.
Jesus, are you serious?
Yeah, right. Very quickly, because I know, you know,
Anything more scary?
I mean, this is anyone could be fooled for thinking this is all you do, but you actually do a load more. You just tell us about your other businesses and interests and what you offer, just on a professional level. Just give it a shameless plug. What do you do?
So I'm the director of a performing arts school called Stage Arts Performing Arts School. We work with children from 3 to 16. I am also the director of a fitness company, Nutritious Works, and we do a lot to support adults up into their 90s. So it's mainly dance now, actually, because COVID put a lot of things, caused a lot of problems for the entertainment industry and the fitness industry. So we do a lot around that space. And as you know, I'm also with a charity boss now and doing a lot of work around that as well as a campaigner. So my days are full on from the minute my eyes open to the minute my eyes shut, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm in a world that I thoroughly enjoyed. I've created that. When I went into my therapy at 23, I decided to come out of proper jobs and just do things that I liked, and that is I'm a professional dancer by trade. So I saw someone say something about mini pops. I was nearly at the last stage. Well, I was at the last stage of mini pops. My friends got chosen, but I totally agree. Wholly inappropriate. The whole thing that went on with there.
But
So
conversely, a hugely successful show.
Absolutely, my friends have gone on. A lot of my friends still work very, in that arena, and that's fine. I love them for it, and I work in the performing arts even as a boss. So I moved away from proper job that everyone thought I should get, and I just said, do you know what, I'm just going to do my stuff because I was healing. No one knew. So I set up my businesses and went into therapy and decided I was just going to do things I wanted to do, which was performing arts, fitness, well-being, and here we are now.
And you've raised two really important points which have come out, and we talk about it all these times on the show. Number one, start with yourself. Always start with yourself. Liz, I blimmin' well will do it. I've said it in public. I will do it, Emma Jane Taylor. I will do it.
Anybody got a Hercules
money?
Number one, start with yourself. And number two, follow your heart. Do what you want to do. Don't go into to get the job that everyone else thinks you should do. Do what you want to do. Look at the success you're generating by following your heart. No one knows what's deep in your heart, what you want to do. Apart from
if you're watching this on my Nespresso bar, the espresso bar, the trouble is you come through as Facebook user. That's how it comes through on our control screens here, so we don't know who you are. We can see the message, but it's just says Facebook user, so we don't have your names here. Emma Jane, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Can we finish with this question? Because I think it'd be a beautiful,
quick
poignant
question.
way to end.
And
Should somebody
you've
be
got
watching this
under
now?
2 minutes.
No problem. Should somebody be watching this now or watching the video playback of it? And what would you say to you as a child now, Emma Jane, to let them know that if they are experiencing it now, the future is bright. The future is what they see here with you as you are now, not as you were then. So if you could go back in time and reassure that frightened child or anyone watching who would be arguably feeling that way, what would you say to them?
That's quite an emotional question as well. Thank you. Thank you, Scotty. I would say you're okay. You've done nothing wrong. This isn't something that you've caused. You're a good person. And don't ever forget that. And you will come through the other side because you have a voice that can be heard, and don't be afraid to use it.
Brilliant.
Beautifully
Emma,
put.
Jane, you have been absolutely outstanding. Bless you. We will be in touch. Dave Sleaton ANA will be in touch. 800,000 people are going to do a wing walk with you.
Yeah, I'm doing the wing walk, and
All right.
and it's something you don't know. I'm doing a party for Emma Jane next year as well, and I'm really looking forward to getting my DJ hat on and doing that for you.
In a groove, aren't
All
we?
right. Okay. Emma Jane
you are
Taylor, bless you.
absolutely-
You'll be back. You'll be another guest again. Bye now. Thank you.
Emma Jane, you are an incredible woman. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
What the hell was that? That was incredible, wasn't it? Hardcore
Powerful.
stuff. Hardcore stuff. You know, sometimes I find myself saying to people, well, you know, giving a little bit of a trigger warning. It's grown-up radio. As I said when we created this, when Howard and I created this, it's radio for grown-ups, as I wrote at the time. That's what it is. And being a grown-up sometimes means that life can be pretty shitty, but we've got to shine a light on it. That's the whole point. If we can't do that, there's no point of having Men's Radio Station and having you with us. We've got to go where others are scared to go. That's on them. It's not on us. Neil, you're sensational. You really are an extraordinary man. Audience around the world, bless you. You are all incredible. Bless you for playing along. You're just the best. I'll be back on Friday. Till then, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.